At what point do you realize that, okay, I am being discriminated against, and maybe it's not all my fault? Because I feel that's very important to understand the early signs. Also, that the Cisco case happened in California. If you talk about a more Indian workforce, where you said again 95% of the senior management is a higher caste, at what point do you then realize, oh, I'm being discriminated here, and how do I tackle it?
I mean, it's several ways, right? So first of all, I think it's important to really understand that discrimination is, doesn't happen in the most obvious and sort of almost like theatrical forms, right? Caste discrimination is not just untouchability, it operates in the most subtle ways. So for instance, one of the leading newspapers in this country said that they have a no meat policy in their cafeteria. They said that like in their common spaces, it would only just be vegetarians who would be, only vegetarian food would be allowed to be consumed, right? Which essentially means that a majority of the people in the country who belong to marginalized communities, meat is their staple diet. So it's one way of telling me that your food is not welcome, and only if you conform to eating vegetarian food will you be allowed to access this space, right? And this happens in various ways, right? So there are people who have studied, in regional languages and have picked up English, speak perfectly well English, but will be mocked because they're unable to speak English the way that upper caste city-bred people speak, right? So you will be mocked for your accent.
Yeah.
You will be mocked because, your grammar is not good. So, I mean, what I'm saying is that the idea of merit is synonymous with being an upper caste, able-bodied man in this country. And anybody else will constantly, even if 24/7, we try to prove ourselves and we do everything to be a good employee, as long as that definition of what and who we consider to be meritorious does not change, everyone else will constantly fall through those cracks, right? And that people will not then have the space to negotiate themselves and to express themselves, freely in the workplace. And I think this is in various, and like, which is what I was saying, that it happens in the most insidious sort of ways that caste plays out. In terms of your dietary preferences, in terms of your accent, also in terms of who can afford, also in terms of who went to which university and colleges, right? Because there are people who had access to foreign education, have had access to a certain kind of university education in this country, and these are all people from a certain strata of society, the top 1 or 2%, right? So your reference points are the same. You already know people who have gone to these places. Now, for instance, if I were to speak about my profession, there are people in practicing law who've had generations of their families who've been lawyers, right? So about 3 or 4 generations of their families who've been lawyers, and you're required to build your practice, you're required to build a reputation for people to entrust you with their case, right? But for people who belong to these families that have been, that are lawyers for generations, it just means that they have to tap into their family's goodwill, and they have to tap into their family's network. And what is this familial network? In the Indian context, for instance, there are not just upper caste families, but only about 30 to 40 of these families that practice law, both as lawyers and are elevated as judges, right? So I think what we've done is that we've really, in various ways, tried to replicate caste, and it has acquired various kinds of forms. So, what I was saying earlier, and I might sound like a broken record at this point, but I think it's important to reiterate this, is as long as we don't understand that labor and work has anything to do with caste, our understanding of anything else in the workplace and the kind of experiences that people from marginalized communities have will not be informed by that sort of caste-based understanding.
Mm.